So welcome to the Node.js Node API team meeting for April 1st. Hopefully it won't be a joke. And we will follow our regular approach of looking at the things that are tagged for milestone 11. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if not, I will share my screen and we can look at what we've got there. So the first part is the drive towards full coverage. I don't think there's any updates on that. Does anybody have any to share? If not, let's take a look at stale issues. Okay, so this one we discussed, and I think, Vladimir, you volunteered to take a look at this one. I don't know if you have any updates.
Sorry, I didn't look on it.
Okay, so we'll discuss that. Discuss this. Yeah, I don't think I need to type anything. I just want to say okay, and let's go back. Take a look at this one. Okay, I'm just reading the latest. I don't know if there's any more updates on that. That was, I guess, a while back.
I don't have an update.
Okay. I don't think there's, so it's basically something that we should look at, but it's not necessarily an urgent issue, right?
Yeah, right. We have a workaround in the test since the test is already passing.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if it is a misuse of our current API. So I just don't have a time to check that.
Sure. Okay, but we'll just leave it on the list. And I think that's actually all the ones from the stale, so that's good. So I guess it's on to, well, we can look at if there's any new modules that were mentioned. No. Let's take a quick look at npm. Oops. I guess that got me to a query that's close. So it still seems to be trending up. It's always funny, these little peaks and valleys in the npm, but so nothing of note there. Okay, so I guess looking at issues in the repos themselves. Anywhere that somebody wants to start in particular?
I pushed a PR for formatting the code. We had an issue to format everything in Node add-on API.
Yep. So that's in the Node add-on API repo itself. That's
yes.
this one, right?
Yes. So with this one, there were some non-auto fixable JavaScripts.
Okay.
So those, and then that's that first log and the first question there. And then I had to be manually addressed.
Okay.
And it would be like this set here: no unused variables, camel casing, using triple equals, things like that. So I had to manually address those. I put all of the JavaScript changes in one commit. I'm starting to think maybe it would have been better to put the auto fixable ones in one commit and then the manual changes in another, so that those could be better reviewed. But I'm not sure. I can do that if it's necessary. Otherwise, it can be just reviewed as is.
Yeah, I guess it's like, it sounds like there were still a fair number of manual ones, right?
Yes. And then some of them were fixed by by disabling certain rules for the whole file because
Okay.
I guess one of them was like no unnecessary blocks or something like that. And it looked like in some of those tests, it was using blocks to sort of differentiate different sections of the test. And
Right.
so I was like, okay, so instead of just actually changing the code to remove the blocks, I think it would have been better to just disable that rule for that file.
Right. Okay.
So it can either be reviewed as is, or I can separate the JavaScript changes into two separate commits, however you guys would like to address it.
Yeah, I think it's one we need to review and land quickly because it's going to be continual merge conflicts, right?
Mhm. Right, yeah.
I think it would be easier, like, I guess it depends. Like I'm relatively comfortable that you did the right thing. And if we didn't, we should see test failures.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's
I'm almost
sort of
like,
how
you know,
I took it too as well.
yeah, it's kind of like how much do we think our looking at it is really going to catch? Because I know after a while my eyes are going to gloss over. So I guess it's the question would be the other team members. If you went back and put it into different commits, are people going to go and look at the one commit that has the non-auto fix things more carefully? Or should we just look at this and, you know, say, okay, there's lots of changes, but we're pretty comfortable they're just going to be formatting. Therefore, let's land it and, you know, rely on the test suite to have covered us and, you know, stick with that.
So like, for example, one of the manual ones is right here. If you scroll up a little bit, just in this index.js there for include underscore directory,
Right.
it was something for non-camel case. So that was one that had to be done manually.
I think the other thing is this is mostly in tests too, right? So, you know, the worst case is we have a test which isn't quite testing as well as we did before. But on the other hand, we don't have full coverage. So I'm doing the risk assessment in my head, right? Like, I
Right.
think if we look at the risk assessment, you know, the NAPI INL and INL.H are the highest risk ones, right?
Correct. And those were all done automatically. There is no
Right.
manual
Okay.
fixes needed. It's just in the JavaScripts, which are only tests.
Right.
Tests and tools, I guess. But the tools are used for tests. So
Right. Yeah. I guess I'm kind of like, yeah, it was mostly mechanical. It's only in the tests. You know, are people pouring over this? Is it gonna actually reduce our risk by very much? My guess is no. And I'm kind of happy to say, yeah, this was mostly mechanical. Let's just land it. But I wonder what other people think. Like, if there's somebody else who's going to say, no, let's break it up into two. I'll spend a lot of time more time looking at the non-mechanical ones, then maybe we should do that. But
does anyone have any preference? Okay, then I guess we can just leave it as is.
yeah, I'm happy to just say, like, yep, LGTM. Let's get it landed. And once the test, these I assume are still running, right? Are like all the 12 ones are waiting. Oh no, there's still some. Okay, so there's still a bunch that are running. So we just need to wait for those to pass.
Okay. Take a look when it runs.
Okay, any other pull requests or issues people want to call out? I can go take a look, but if there's ones that people want to start with.
Yeah, I submitted a bunch of pull requests for the core.
Okay, let's just look at let's look at the node out on API ones, and then we can flip over there. Maybe makes sense.
Yeah, I still need to go back to this pull request here, but sorry, I didn't do changes yet.
Which one was that? The
It was about this automated formatting stuff.
right. Okay, debate on the core side.
No, it was
Or-
in add-on API. It was I had one pull request.
Right.
I need to apply path.
Did I land that?
Oh,
I think I ended up landing it because
Oh.
I remember we discussed it,
yes.
but in the end, it was like it needed to be custom in the two cases. So
Okay, cool. Thanks.
there was a suggestion we could use the path. So I think, we could go back and add that in, but I don't think it was critical one way or the other in the end, because you still had to add the trailer.
Mhm.
So it wasn't going to get rid of the fact that there was like a switch between the two anyway.
Yeah, I do see the commit in main, so I think it was merged in.
Yeah. So that, an improvement we could do is like another PR to change to use the path separator. But so
I would propose different PR to kind of simplify the whole thing, because I don't believe like we need to use Python in the first place. Then we do formatting.
okay, I wouldn't mind that at all, because on my Realm machine, it only has Python 3, I think, and I have to like manually change it to not say Python. It now says Python, and it doesn't find that because it's expecting Python 3 for some reason. Anyway, sounds like the one I will call out here is this 874. So I opened this. We had that long discussion about the const PR, and so I ended up landing that minus one of the commits, which was to remove some things. But the other commits actually removed these three methods, because adding const to them. So adding const to the property L value versions actually can make some conflict with these. So the PR had removed them, but the problem is that actually breaks some existing code. And this is the code that would break from the issue that was opened. So I added that code into the tests that test the particular place, and it passes reverting those and fails without them. So we did actually break something. I think we might spend some more time looking to understand that specific case and maybe do something on purpose. But I think backing them out for now, because we didn't intend to break anything by adding the consts, any existing code. So if we do that, I think we should take some more time and understand it, make a choice. So this one, I think we just need to land before we do a next release, because I don't think we've done a release with the consts. And so if we get this landed, we hopefully won't have broken anybody between releases.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this one I haven't had a chance to look at. I think this is just like an optimization that removes some intermediate objects, but so it's probably worth looking at. Haven't had a chance to look. This one, I think it's just there's a few comments waiting. Otherwise, nothing too much. I don't think to discuss there. I don't know if there's any. Go ahead.
1157. The second in the.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is saying that if you're doing some inspection, things aren't showing up as expected.
Yes, from my understanding, he's expecting that ID property to be printed when you just console log the object.
Yeah.
And he has to use, I guess when you define this instance accessor, it's a hidden property because he has to use this show hidden in order for it to come up. But, and he's using the NAPI enumerable property descriptor, which I would expect would make it just come out from a normal print, but I guess it's not the case. I'm not sure how that behaves with these hidden properties. I didn't even know there was such a thing that you would have an option to show hidden with util inspect.
So I guess the question is like this instance method, instance accessor, NAPI writable, NAPI enumerable. I have some feeling we came up with a NAPI default, node.js, API. Actually, that might have been in the default. Actually, I'm just going to make sure I have the chat open in case. Okay, there is no chat. Sorry, I just want to see in case there's anybody else needs to be promoted to. Okay. I seem to remember there was like an issue with the NAP. Okay, so here's NAPI default as the. So what did we define NAPI default as? Okay, why does that always do that to me?
I see it in the JS native API types header in core
Right, okay.
as value 0. On line 25.
Right, but I think there's like a NAPI, this one here, NAPI default method. Okay, which is. So we have NAPI default method and NAPI default JS property.
Does it need to be configurable in order for it to show up as non-hidden? Because I don't think he was using that as a property.
That's sort of kind of where I was going to, is maybe it's related to that.
Because he just has writable and enumerable.
Usually enumerable responsible for it to be hidden, not hidden, right? Shouldn't be configurable.
Okay.
It's, as far as I know, like JavaScript. Strange.
So I wonder if we suggest.
I guess my question is, what is behavior if somebody defines property directly inside of JavaScript? Because I understand this issue is about like a developer tries to do the change for Node API, but I guess if the same property we define inside of JavaScript, what type of result we see?
Let's see. Let's see if I can do a quick test.
Because it's technically behavior for this log function. And what if log function just simply does not want to show anything which has getter and setter by default?
Yeah, that's certainly a.
Maybe there is some kind of optimization, like so log by default does not want to execute anything. I don't know. maybe even worth to test this behavior inside of Chrome browser. What Chrome would do. Is it like discrepancy between Node and Chrome and what?
Right. So this first question is your question, right? Like if you set a getter setter from JavaScript, you see the console. You see it in the console log by default, right?
Yes. So
I just did a quick check with like, am I muted? No. Okay,
No, we can hear you.
I just did a quick check in the console using finding an object and then doing object define property that has a getter method and enumerable true and configurable true, and console logging that object does not return that property. But then
Okay.
object get own property names return of that object does show that property. And I'm not sure if what the equivalent of the util inspect show hidden is in Chrome. I don't know how that works under the hood.
So you setting a property using define property?
Yes. I can just put this in the chat, I guess, real quick. Chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully it'll render correctly. Yes. So yeah, object define property, get enumerable configurable, and doing the same thing with writable, and you can't use writable obviously because it's just a getter. So even with enumerable and configurable, it still doesn't show up as defaults like that. So I'm not exactly sure what would need to be done.
yeah, it seems like it does not. It's not an issue with Node API. It's more like behavior of console.log, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I guess so by default, they're just not in the console.log, right?
Right. So however that is trying to find all of the properties of an object, it's not necessarily showing up.
And if
And
I don't know, maybe like they have scenarios and they want to show this property, like to force to show something. I guess there is something like people can define like special method associated with object to enumerate properties. Like, sorry, I don't remember. I saw it in the standard, like you can define special symbol-based name. Maybe you guys know look better.
Okay.
This way, people can control whatever has been shown than people enumerating properties, and probably in this case, this kind of enumerator. You can associate with object with some kind of method called enumerator or something like this.
And do we have a method to do a visible?
And I guess another thing to note is that I think by default, it doesn't run those. Because if you were to define a property that's a getter, and then you try to console log it, every time you would do that, it would actually run your getter code. So maybe that's why by default, it doesn't output that. Because I've seen sometimes like in the Chrome debugger, like I just put that object in my watch, right? And it lists the property, but it shows it in as a parentheses ... meaning that I actually have to click that in order for me to see the value.
Right.
So I think that's just the behavior of properties that have instance accessors, property accessors. And that's another reason in his example where he showed that when he did the inspect with hidden, it was showing just the text of getter setter or something like that. And I think it's because util inspect does not want to explicitly run the properties accessor method.
Right. That makes sense.
That's all I've got.
Okay, so it's consistent anyway.
I believe so, yeah.
I guess the question, if they wanted to make it visible by default, that I guess there's no other attributes that we can really set, right? I guess I'd like, there's no other advice we have. It's more just like, if you want to see them, you have to look at them. You have to actually be looking for them.
I guess if they can find a way to do it without Node API, just say like if they do something in JavaScript and make it visible, we can then advise how we can do it from Node API. But
right.
First of all, I don't know like if this method even exists inside of JavaScript itself.
Right. Yeah, we don't know how to do it anyway, right?
Yes.
Off the top of our head, it may be, but we'd have to go figure it out. Okay, any others here that we should look at? This one, I remember yeah, I think we're just still waiting on the poster. So if nothing there, I can flip over to Node, where I think, Vladimir, you had a few, right?
Yes, I kind of most have like biggest questions about one when we remember like we talked about this memory leak issue and implemented kind of running finalizers as a part of a second GC pass, and people saying like two contentious issues with this PR. Like one of them, should we have kind of local finalizer error handler? And second one is, I think it's even more important that are we okay to run finalizers in some random places, because finalizers may invoke some JavaScript. And what I understood that it may be not a good idea that imagine somebody in the middle of some JavaScript and garbage collector kicks in and this finalizer starts to run another JavaScript. I understand it can cause some very unexpected issues. Oh, you're looking for the issues. So it's a pull request.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll actually get rid of this sheet here. This one, right?
Yes. So. C function pointer.
Right. So you're saying if there was C, if we knew that a finalizer was pure C code, then it could be run separately.
Right. So I guess my question to this group, like, should we introduce such thing as a pure finalizers, where we prohibit using calling to JavaScript during finalization, because we can say this finalizers is only for cleaning up your native resources.
Right, and then that lets us do something which is more optimized, right?
Right, because if people still want to do some JavaScript calls, probably we don't have better way than as we do today to call them from set immediate. But for the second pass to clean up some native resource, like imagine you have some kind of if manage JavaScript object, you associate some C++ object, and then this JavaScript object is dying. We want to just call destructor in our C++ class. It's everything what we care about, or cleaning up some other native resources, which I think like majority of scenarios will be like this. The fact that some people may call JavaScript from these finalizers, it's more like rather obscure scenario, like not so common, but exactly this usage makes all these different difficulties with the second pass altogether, because we don't even need second pass for pure finalizers. We can do it just in first pass.
Right. So basically it's and were there specific use cases that was going to help us with? Like, is this the case of the loop and things not getting cleaned up soon?
Right, as we saw, like on this original bug, it seems like developer they work on some kind of JavaScript and Node API code, which work with some graphics. Like as a part of this JavaScript execution, they may produce a lot of native objects responsible for some UI elements. And imagine some kind of game environment. It can be literally millions of kind of objects created at a time. And they want to kind of efficiently be able to allocate them, deallocate them. Maybe they don't even use normal kind of memory allocation technique, but rather using some internal resource management technique. So I don't know, people using some graphics card objects. I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so I don't know all these different nitty-gritty details, how people can optimize in all these different graphics rendering.
Right. So basically it would be something like when you added a finalizer, you could set a flag that's like, C only, or can run JavaScript.
Right. So how to approach it? I was thinking about two different things. One of them, probably to introduce all new type of finalizers, but we need to think like how it's going to work with all this our wrap object and other stuff. Another approach, I want to ask what exactly is finalizer hint, because I believe we can sneak in like specialized hint, like to create effective function which will create this pure finalizer hint.
I think the hint was just a way to pass extra data, right?
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, I'm able to talk now. So the finalizer hint is exactly what Michael said. It's arbitrary data. We can't dress that up in any way. We have to leave that up to the user. But I am in favor of adding a pure finalizer that doesn't accept or doesn't receive an NAPI environment. So it just receives like two pointers: the object to be destroyed and the hint. That's it. And then that makes it clear that you cannot call into JavaScript from there. And I think we can use like a new API that is similar to an API at finalizer, because a finalizer can be added to any object nowadays. So we can just add another API that says an API at pure finalizer. And then whatever finalizers you have, you can keep, right? And they will run whenever they run, no matter how inconvenient. But the pure finalizer will run immediately, so you can rest assured that your native memory will be freed.
Can it really not have an env? Because is the env needed for potentially some cleanup?
Well, if it's needed, then you can't use a pure finalizer, right? Because the only thing that the env is needed for is to say things like, an API delete reference, right? Which is not pure.
Right. There's no like, I guess anything that we want to clean up that goes through an API could potentially actually do some JavaScript.
Well, now that you mention it, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, is it safe to go into the engine at all? Is the question. If it is, then if it is safe to go into the engine in some cases, then yes, then would need an env, and then things get complicated.
Right.
So
I think it might be like if this use case doesn't need it, it'd be safer to say no, you don't get that. Like you
I can
said,
think
it's a
about
clear
one
signal.
scenario when environment usage can be legal is to access instance data. So technically, what we do, we associate
good point.
add-on with environment through instance data. So one thing we can do with a pure finalizer to pass this instance data as a instead of environment.
Right. Yeah, this gets a little dicey. That's a good point. Well, okay, then let's examine the implications of providing the environment. If we do, then we have to document that no JavaScript must be executed. And then we may need to sort of annotate all our APIs saying this is JavaScript safe, this is not JavaScript safe. And I suspect that annotation coincides with which API uses an API preamble and which one simply uses like the basic wrappers, like for checking the environment is null and doesn't have any preamble.
We already have the can't call into JS. Is that actually checked anywhere?
What do you mean we already have the can't call into JS?
Don't we have like an error code or something that's like, hey, you're not allowed to call into JavaScript?
No, unfortunately, we were gonna add that, right? But
okay, but we haven't added that.
No, I don't think so. Let me double check the code. I
remember discussion of that. I just can't. It's quite possible it's not actually there.
Yeah. So a status code of can't call into JS would be useful, and we would already have a place where instead of an API pending exception, we would return an API cannot call into JS.
Yeah.
But that would be ABI breaking, and so we didn't do that. We still return an API pending exception. But not using it for that purpose, but introducing it would be okay, I suppose. And then because this is a new scenario in which we would use such a status code never before seen, so we wouldn't be breaking anything. We would be adding a new feature, and adding the status code would be a good place to. This would be a good place to start adding the status code, I guess. So yeah, that's not a bad idea actually.
But then so I was just, but if it's a pretty big change, if we have to now figure out all the ones that should check that or not, right, before.
Well, I mean, that is a maintenance burden, right? Because you have to know all the methods, all the public APIs that we have that should return it, and then have them return it if they get called.
Right, exactly. And there may be overhead of performance too.
Why?
Well, just it's an extra check, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yes. I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a short circuit. Like, if env currently inside finalizer, then return an API set last error, new status code. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it would make the call into like set property and stuff a little bit fatter. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe then the solution is to just have one that doesn't take an environment and see how useful that is. Maybe do an assessment ahead of time. I don't know. Do like a poll to see how many folks could use that if it meant not having this accumulation of memory in a tight loop. Because Vladimir said that it's the majority of cases, but based on what data, right? So do we know for a fact that most people don't call don't call an API stuff when from their finalizers? It'd be good to have some data on that. And if it turns out that it's a good chunk, then we should provide them the pure finalizers.
And I think the fact that we're not passing Node API, which is creating additional complexity. But if people want to pass it for whatever reason, like they can do it through finalizer hints, through some other means, that they will be able to achieve the exactly same situation that they can shoot themselves in the foot. So technically, if we do implement pure finalizers, we still need to implement these checks in all our functions to make sure that.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, ideally we would, but given the performance impact, we might just say, listen, if you want to shoot yourself in the foot, here's the gun, but be aware that this is a shot in the foot and not something else.
I guess the difference
we
is
have.
Yeah. If we don't pass it in, though, we're not saying here's the gun, right? Like it's then saying, if you smuggled the gun, you can shoot yourself in the foot.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
so
right.
That's not
that's
as
true.
bad as saying here's the gun, right? Like there's the levels.
Oh no, you're right.
Right. So I think one that doesn't have it seems like a reasonable, like if that doesn't work in the case that you already have, Vladimir, then that's a signal that, well, wait a sec, we have to do something more complicated. If it does solve this case, then maybe, like you said, there's a workaround if there's some really edge cases. But if you're going to use it in those cases, you better know what you're doing, right? And we can't protect everybody from every case.
Yeah. We need to document that. I mean, this is going to be new documentation, right? So we can start it out by saying that, we can start right off the bat saying that this is, we point out that the reason the environment isn't passed in is because these node APIs are supposed to get called from these finalizers. That's. I have an idea for a possible refinement. What if we use the regular finalizer signature, meaning environment void star, but we pass the environment in as null, and then we document. Because we already do that for environment shutdown. Like you can get, or no, not environment shutdown. Where is it in thread safe function? There, in thread safe function, there is an instance where you receive where the NAPI env parameter is null, and so you need to deal with that, and it's documented that the NAPI env parameter may be null, and I think it's in the case where the environment is shutting down, so you can't make any more JavaScript calls. And I think what that will buy us is that if in the future we decide to take on this maintenance burden, and maybe we do in the future we don't consider it to be such a big performance impact because, I don't know, the compiler optimizes things out or whatever, then we can remove the restriction that NAPI env is always null. We can say, okay, henceforth it is no longer always null, and you can start adding, conditions there saying if it's not null, then you can call into this select subset of Node API, and then by that time we will have figured out what that subset is. So I guess it doesn't tie our hands because you can't introduce a new parameter, but you can set a never before seen value to a new parameter because that's purely additive.
Yeah, I like this approach better because it gives us some ability to grow.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's not add a new function pointer signature. Let's use the existing one, but let's make sure we document that for the time being, NAPI env will always be null when calling a pure finalizer rather than a regular finalizer.
And what's the method to add this finalizer?
It would have to be a new one.
Right.
Like we have an API add pure finalizer. Sounds like a good name for it. Or I'm sorry, node API add pure finalizer.
Right. That's what I was looking for.
We have three different ways to do it today, right? Like one of them is then we're creating, I think, object wrap. We have explicit NAPI add finalizer, add underscore finalizer.
Yep.
It's something we can add to any. It was in JS, JS native API.h.
Yeah.
No, not this one. This is the implementation.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's the one.
It's
This one.
yes.
Right. Okay. So this one.
And then we have object wrap, like I think it's wrap object, an API wrap object.
Yeah, an API wrap. That's it.
I think it's like most important would be wrap object.
That's the one.
So my proposal would be then we introduce new functions which creating finalizers, but rather than calling it pure something, what we can do, we can just simply have a new signature which receives additional parameter, which will be some flags. And if people pass in the special pure flag, then finalizer becomes pure. Otherwise, it will be just exactly the same as the previous version of this function, like an API wrap.
Yeah, and then we could deprecate this one.
Right.
You know, we won't remove it because we haven't removed anything, but we could move it into the deprecated header so that people don't see it. And so if you're writing new code, you would get the new version.
Why not simply add the new method, and then you can call an API wrap with a null finalizer. I mean, you can still today call it, right? Or maybe not. I don't know if is the finalizer required for an API wrap?
I don't think so, but I like the idea of the flags in that, you know, it's like same API, but you can modify, you basically have a way to signal behavior, and we could extend those flags next time rather than a new API if we had some other reason to do it.
Okay, but then you can only add like after the fact. Like if we don't provide the same kind of alternative API to an API add finalizer, then you know, wrap will now have this ability to offer you the possibility of adding a pure finalizer, but an API add finalizer will not have the pure finalizer equivalent.
I would say we add the same flags to both.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah, that works.
The same for external, create external. I can see it's also adds, right? It also adds finalizer. So pretty much the proposal actually, let's add this additional flag to all our functions which receiving this finalizer callback.
Okay.
And then if we can somehow store those flags in the whatever is already there.
Yeah. We can.
Then I can see, like in our finalization, it can just check the flags and make it. Basically, you can say, "Oh, is this flag bit set? Yes, I'm just going to run it right now."
Yeah.
Otherwise, I do exactly what I'm doing. So the change to the actual finalization today will be pretty minimal, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So ship it off to set immediate if the flag is not set. Otherwise, call it from the second pass callback. That would be the way to go.
Or even I
call
think,
it with a null.
Wasn't it, Vladimir, you're thinking we don't even necessarily have to wait till the second pass callback?
Right. Like
Okay. Right.
If it's pure, we can do in first pass, and if it's not pure, we will do it as today instead of set immediate.
Yeah. Okay.
Technically speaking, we can kill second pass altogether, if you like.
That's true. Yeah, we could. Yeah. It's not even that big of a change, right? Because like it's like 4 lines if I remember correctly, and it would be simpler.
But I would just make, in this particular case, I would make the smallest change, which is just like, if the flag's set, short circuit, run it now. Otherwise, do the old behavior.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. We can move to first pass later. Yeah. There's no rush.
So in this context, let me ask you a question about naming preferences. How we would name with new functions. Should we? One thing we can do, I can see like some new functions already been named node underscore API underscore something.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the way to go. So the prefix is node underscore API, not an API anymore. That much is certain. As for the rest, I don't know. A node API wrap with flags. I don't know.
But I guess he's saying we could just, if we're going to use node API, it could just be node API wrap.
Yes, that's what I'm after.
Oh,
But is that confusing?
True. Yes. Yeah, we can take advantage of the new namespace to actually avoid having to add stuff afterwards. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay.
The only question is if we ever decide, I don't think we'll ever decide to convert everything over. That might cause us grief, but
yeah, well, there's no real way to do that, right? Like we were discussing using macros, but that's not really of any benefit, right? Like it doesn't make a difference. It's just going to be there because, well, it encodes history. So
if we rename them, we could just get rid of the old ones anyway.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So, okay. So maybe that's the way. It's just like, okay, yeah, it's node API wrap and.
Yeah. And node API add finalizer and what's the other one? Node API create external. Yeah. Okay.
And the other ones are moved to deprecated. So they're still there, but new people won't see them. And eventually,
Yeah.
That seems reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. We can phase them out, I suppose, or just keep them around and I mean, basically keep them around forever.
Yeah, they're just there. They're sort of hidden.
Yep.
They'll just be calling the new ones anyway, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they will be.
Yeah, I like this approach. I think it's overall simplifies. I mean, this new pure finalizers, it simplifies a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And
it's a case of like if the programmer can give us a little bit more info, we can optimize better. So
yeah, exactly. So then our solution to the tight loop problem is a partial one. Basically, if your finalizer is pure, then you don't have this problem. If you have to call it into JavaScript from your finalizer, then you have to take into account the fact that it will be set immediate, and so you need to yield every once in a while to give the set immediate, or to give the event loop a chance to call your finalizer, because the GC is unaffected. It will brutally free everything, tight loop or not, because it is the GC. It has that privilege, but your memory does not have that privilege, and so you need to yield every once in a while. That's basically our message to folks that cannot use pure finalizers for whatever reason. Right?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Let's try doing it.
Yeah, very cool.
And okay, if we're okay with this PR, I have a few questions about another one.
Yep. Okay. So right. Because we're almost at time, but let's go back to, if I can get my mouse cursor. What was the other one?
It's something what I submitted probably last night. Is about I'm proposing this new ref counted type an API persistent. Okay, I need to rename it. We just discussed. Yes, this one. I need to rename it with node.score API. But the idea is that instead of using an API ref, let's have new type, which will be just like normal pure ref counted, and it can be applied to all NAPI values, NAPI value types. And I have a unit test. If you like, we can just look at usage.
Which one? Where do you want me to go?
If you go to file changes,
okay.
There's. I think it's if you go to test permanent CC.
So in the advantage of this over the existing references, if I remember the existing references become weak versus going away is the main difference. Is that the?
Yes. And here, as soon as we go to 0, we deleting it. It behaves like normal ref counted object. And also because it does not support weak reference semantic, we can have any value of any type. So pretty much like we have an API value can become persistent. You can keep it inside of your class as a field and whatnot. And it doesn't matter what value type you have. So it can be, if you look, for example, test.js, it's what test does. Like you see, I'm creating values of different types.
Right.
Like, undefined, null, boolean, whatnot. I'm putting them in an array, and then I'm iterating through this array. And this is what I do. I'm creating a permanent for all these different value types. Then I'm able to read a value out of this permanent stuff, and also kind of doing this add ref and ref and unref.
Right.
And unref also has this optional Boolean parameter which can tell us if object is deleted or not. I don't like the fact that we returning ref kind of current ref count, because in multi-threaded environment, usually if people know exactly ref count, they may kind of use it wrong way, and it may cause a lot of unexpected errors. But maybe people just want to know if this was final ref count and do something additional stuff. So it can be useful, maybe return just Boolean, but otherwise, like we're not telling.
I have a question about this. If the benefit here is that it supports any data type, then why is this useful in native code? I mean, if you want to store an integer in a native class, then why don't you just store an integer in a native class? Why do you have to store it as a JavaScript value?
So imagine like you do have a JavaScript object which coming through your API, and you just want to keep it like essentially it's kind of like a variant. An API value is a variant.
Oh, I see, like a variant.
Which
but if
can
you do,
be of type.
Okay, so if you store an object in a persistent and the object is garbage collected, then what is in your persistent now?
Oh, it can't be garbage collected because persistent always it
Oh, I see. Okay. I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's everything that an API ref is minus the weak behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just kind of so anyway, like something what I want to propose, and kind of if you have time to review it, think about it, I would appreciate it.
Just based on our previous discussion, is like a flag on the existing API make any sense? Like, hey, I'm going to tell you this is a like, or I don't want the weak behavior.
I like it.
Right? Like it's basically give me, it's keep the same API, but there's now flags that say, okay, I'm creating this. This is gonna, like, I don't know what you'd call it, but like no weak behavior. And if that just makes it all work with whatever gets like in all types, I don't know.
I would love to see it. Like, yes, if we can, if we apply the same approach, we create this node API prefix for some existing APIs which using an API references, and add additional flags that are saying like this API reference now, like it can be of any type. It does not support weak semantic, so it means like it automatically can be any type, because we can just simply say weak semantic requires it type to be object-like. I mean,
right.
Object-like it's like can be function, can be object, it can be whatever stuff,
right.
whatever been supported by weak semantic. But say number or Boolean, there's no weak semantic, but thus we can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. We can even keep an API ref then.
Yes.
We don't need an API persistent even. Yeah, that's not bad.
That's what I mean. Just it doesn't expand the surface too much, but it adds a flag that lets you get the behavior.
Wait a second. you don't even need a flag. If it's going to be a new API, then if the type of the NAPI value that you wish to persist is object or well, okay, fine. No, yeah, okay, you do need a flag because you don't want to fall back to creating a regular reference if it is an object. You sometimes want a persistent reference, or rather a reference without weak semantics, even for an object, right? Because I was thinking you could detect the type, right, from the object, and then use old style references for objects and then new style references for integers. But no, even with a new API, you still need the flag, right? Like you want the option of having a persistent reference to an NAPI object without the weak semantics, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, flag it is. Okay, new API plus flag. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. I love it.
And I guess
Because
C,
it's actually
C doesn't let us have a default value for fields, do we?
No.
No, yeah, okay. That's what I was
No,
remembering.
we want an explicit. We want to explicitly say no weak semantics.
No, yeah, I know, but I guess I was like, in C++, I think we could have that automatically filled in without actually having to even create a new API. Like, I guess,
right.
Anyway, we're in C, so it doesn't matter. Can't do that.
Yeah.
We need a new API specifically that has that particular extra option, and we can do this.
Yep.
We do the same deprecation of the version that doesn't have it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. I love it.
Yeah. Cool.
It will help us to kind of fix behavior for an API ref without introducing new primitives, and that's what.
Yeah.
And if you think like with flags, in some cases, remember like we just discussed this finalizer behavior. So I think that some of these functions will have like another flag, pretty much is the same parameter, which will control this NAPI ref behavior.
So wait a second. Can't we flip this around? Like, can't we say that we relax the acceptance criteria for NAPI ref, or like for create reference? We relax the criteria saying it is able to accept any value now, not just object and symbol. I think we extended that to symbol. But if you do pass in if you do pass in a primitive value, then you don't get the weak semantics, right? And so we get everything we want except for the explicit non-weak semantics for objects using existing APIs. No need to change the surface at all. And then the new API covers only the situation where, yes, I want a reference to an object, but I don't want the weak semantics. And so the new API has a smaller scope, and we use the existing we widen the scope of the existing API, because you only need the flag. You only need the flag if you want to avoid the weak semantics, right? And weak semantics are only relevant to objects and object-like things, right? So yes. Why don't we just use the existing API to cover everything that we can, right, including primitives, and use the new API only for those instances where you want a persistent reference to an object, but you don't want weak semantics.
The disadvantage there is possibly backwards compatibility.
What would it break?
Well, it's that let's see. So I guess you could compile on a newer version of Node and things would run. But if you tried to run that with an older version of Node, it wouldn't work.
Well, yes, but we claim to be forwards compatible, not backwards.
Yeah. So I agree it's forwards compatible. Like, do we already have cases like that? Maybe we do. Versus the flag would be explicit, right? Like you try and compile with the flag. And it would require it would require you target a new version of. I guess adding the flag.
Look at it this way. Today, if you pass a primitive to create reference, you get an error, right? So nobody is passing primitives to get reference because they've been getting errors all this time, right? Now,
But
if,
it has to do
if-
with the version of Node Node API that you target. Right, like we
yeah.
add the flag. The flag is only going to be available if you specifically say, I want Node API 10 or something. If we transparently
yeah.
add it, then you could be using a version of Node API that is claimed to be supported.
Well, for what it's worth, if I remember correctly, with thread safe function, we made a change like this in behavior that was not explicitly marked by an outside API change, which if I remember correctly, we made something optional that was not optional before. I forget what it was, but we made it optional. And it didn't break anyone because everyone was required to provide it, and so they provided it because otherwise their code wouldn't run. And so now that we made it optional, people started changing code such that sometimes they didn't provide it, and now there's no going back. But that's okay. We're not planning on going back.
But if it was
Making
never
money.
used, that might be slightly different.
What do you mean if it
I'm
was
just
never
thinking
used?
we need to think through the versioning impact as well.
Yeah.
Like if you ask for it may be that we could still do it, but it would have to be that internally, if you ask for Node API version 9, for example, it still doesn't work. Like you get an error if you try and create one. But if you ask for Node API
Oh, I
version 10,
see.
it does give you the new behavior, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
like this capability should be tied to a Node API version, because the expectation is that if I use Node API 10 and I run it on something to build it, and I run it on something that has Node API 10, I expect it to work.
yeah, but we don't really have a way of checking versioning like this and making behavior work at runtime, I don't think. So
Right. So if it's
yeah,
not,
no,
so that's why
okay.
that's where maybe it's better to just leave it it's a new function with a new, and it's only available if you've asked.
Yeah, that's pretty clean. Yeah, that's a lot cleaner. Yeah. The implications are a lot easier to reason about.
Yeah. We know our existing model of how we would exclude and not exclude it, and everything will work.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, never mind then. Let's have a new one.
Okay, anything else on this one?
This is it. I think it's a very good discussion, and I have something to do here.
You're great. We've told you to, okay, you can change everything. Okay, we are 12 minutes
Hopefully for
over.
the better. Yep.
So I think I'll say we should close out unless there's something we should talk about.
I do have something real quick.
Okay, go for
Michael,
it.
last time you said that there was that that hanging test for thread safe function sum, the
Yes.
typed one, and it appears that that one has also hung in the formatting PR that I had.
Okay.
Didn't you say before it was only for Debian that was causing the crash?
No, I've seen it mostly, like at one point, every time I ran it, it ran on it hung on Debian, but later on it was intermittent. I have seen it on a few other platforms. Which one are you seeing it on?
It failed on all the Ubuntu's. Ubuntu for Node 12, 14, and 16. So
I've never seen it happen for all of them.
yeah, okay. I'm going to try getting a VM for Ubuntu and then seeing if I can figure something out with that.
Right.
But, yeah, so that's why that PR has failed.
They're all still, so maybe there was maybe I was being too confident we would. But on the other hand, if our test caught it, then
yeah,
that's fine.
okay, well, so it may be some time before we can merge that formatting PR.
Okay.
Then.
Okay.
All right, and that's all that I
Okay.
have. All
Talk
right.
to everybody later.
Ciao. Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.